to welcome you to this timely discussion hosted by the International Republican Institute on Albania's April 25th elections and what they mean for the country's democracy. Albania held parliamentary elections on Sunday in which the ruling Socialist Party, led by Prime Minister Edi Rama, won an unprecedented third term. Based on the results, the Socialists gained 74 of the 140 seats in parliament, giving them a majority. The opposition Democratic Party and Socialist Movement for Integration had announced a possible post-election alliance before Sunday. Together, these two opposition blocs would have 63 seats in the new parliament. Voter turnout was higher than in the last elections in 2017 at 46%. International and domestic observers have said that while the elections were generally well organized and the government did implement several election reforms before the vote, there remain obstacles to completely free and fair elections in Albania, with allegations of vote buying, the use of state resources in electioneering, and instances of pre-election violence. What do these elections mean for the future course of Albania's democracy? Will a third Edi Rama government be able to tackle the problems of endemic corruption that have plagued Albania for decades? There have been concerns that media freedoms are eroding in the country. Will this change? Will the opposition return to parliament and play a constructive role in the country's politics? And what do the elections mean for the country's path towards joining the European Union? To help us answer these questions, we are delighted to have with us leading figures in the three main political parties in Albania. First of all, Balla is General Secretary of the Socialist Party. Yorita Tabaku is a member of the Executive Committee of the Democratic Party, and Klaida Joshi is a member of the Executive Committee of the Socialist Movement for Integration. Thank you for joining us to offer your insights. Before we start, I'd like to point out that this event is being live streamed on Facebook, but we will not be taking any questions from Facebook. Those in our audience wishing to submit a question may do so by sending a message within the Q&A window. On the bottom of your screen, you will see the option to open the Q&A box where you will be able to type and send your question. I will now turn to Taulant Balla of the Socialist Party to provide his brief opening remarks. Mr. Balla, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and I hope you are doing all well. And thank you very much also for this invitation to be part of such a panel talking about our recent general elections. That is true, the Socialist Party won these elections by a slight majority. And I want to say from the beginning that we are not going to sing the ABBA song, "The winner takes it all." We think that we have got a very huge responsibility ahead of us. And we are ready to work together with the opposition to unite the country. In every campaign, in every country, like in US, in the last presidential elections, there is a lot of division in the country. But after the campaign, all the political actors need to work together to unite the country. And I would like to re-emphasize once again what Ned Price, State Department spokesperson, said yesterday, that the first congratulations go to the Albanian people. Because elections are always a celebration of democracy. And second is that we need to continue the strong and very close partnership with the United States. And third, which I would also underline, is that I personally also, like the State Department did, I commend the campaign of the opposition. It was a very strong campaign, fought until the end. And what is fourth and very important is that every political party now has to respect the results of these legitimate elections. Complaints must be followed only through legal procedures, and all political parties must understand that Albania has a very important European integration agenda ahead, and we all need to work together. When we speak about elections, we all had good and bad results. We as Socialist Party had very good results in some areas, and we had very bad results in some other areas that we didn't expect. And I think also the opposition had very good results in some areas, and I don't know what were their expectations, but surely everybody has to understand that you win somewhere and you lose somewhere. SP had very good results in some areas. DP increased itself with 10% from the last elections. But what is generally accepted, I think, by all, that elections confirmed all the main electoral polls before elections, like Ipsos, Euronews, and others that had predicted Socialist Party to have the majority on its own. When it comes to, because I spoke a little bit about the results, what is important to stress are the standards of the last general elections of 25th of April. In this regard, I think we have all to refer to what the judges of these elections said, which is the ODIHR mission on its preliminary report that was released on Monday, and who stated clearly that the election process, and I'm reading the report, was calm and the secrecy of the vote was mostly respected. And when it comes to the counts, the process was largely transparent and smooth. And here I have to remind our position that has been clear during the last 4 years, that I think DP now got convinced that we have to depoliticize the administration of the elections when it comes to members of the electoral committees or also the counters. Now we had another proof that political appointed counters are hearing the, let's say, the orders that come from the political parties, and they have to understand that they have to respect the law first. So I think that one of the first points of our next electoral reform would be the depolitization of the members of the electoral administration. We must not continue with this example anymore. We are the only remaining country, maybe in Europe, that we still have political parties who are voted and political parties who count the vote of the people. Dear friends, the reason why these elections has been considered not only by ODIHR, but also by our European partners, United States. I mentioned the State Department spokesperson's statement yesterday, are free and fair, are connected also with the efforts that the government did, and you mentioned, to include and to work with the opposition while preparing the legal framework. You know that June 5th agreement that was sponsored or supported by US Embassy in Tirana, and your ambassador Yuri Kim deserves a lot of thanks about making this deal possible. Or also, let's say, part of the fact that DP officially boycotted the parliament since February 2019. So we had a deal out of the parliament, and we had to implement the deal within the parliament. In the fact, due to the last changes that we did to the electoral code, for the first time, the Albanian people had the possibility to have 2 votes, one for the parties and one for the candidates. And I'm very happy for that, because it gives more legitimacy to every politician. And also it helps on democratizing all political parties, because it's the will of the people who decide not only who's going to be the government, but who's going to be in the political groups, either in majority or in the opposition. And we are conscious that several previous ODIHR recommendations remain unaddressed and need to be considered in the next parliamentary session as soon as possible, where too I would have to underline the need to have a bigger reform when it comes to political parties' finances. I saw a little bit some of the expenses that political parties did with, for example, in the social networks, and I think that more transparency need to be done on this regard. As a final remark, I need to stress the importance of these elections for the sake of the European integration. Meeting the standards and organizing free and fair elections will open the green light for the start of the negotiations with Albania and North Macedonia. As our Prime Minister Edi Rama has already stressed, in this stage, we need to strengthen the cooperation with the opposition. To go ahead with the reforms needed to continue the integration process. We had the majority to govern, but we don't have a majority in the parliament to make substantial reforms which need qualified majority. And therefore, that's why I want to re-stress again our offer to Democratic Party, which is the only political group that has the numbers to form the political group in the parliament, that we are ready to work together. We are ready to share responsibilities when it comes to our common efforts towards European integration. And I look forward meeting the new elected colleagues like Yorida and Klaida in September once the new parliament is convened. So thank you very much. This is all for the first intervention, and I'm here to respond to any question that the participants will have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Balla. We'll now turn to Yorida Tabaku of the Democratic Party. Yorida, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Paul, and also to the other participants. Thanks for this opportunity. I'm a little bit tired myself. I just finished counting this morning in my constituency votes for candidates. Since Sunday, we finished this morning 8 a.m. So it was quite a long process and also very emotional for some of our counters. But I am very happy that all of our administration managed this process with integrity, which I cannot say from the other side. I am very happy because we ran a great campaign, and in my constituency, but in Tirana in general, I increased the result of my party by 55% votes more for the Democratic Party in my constituency. I ran a positive campaign. The party, Democratic Party of Albania, started a process with a program 2 years ago. We had a very good team. Of course, we during the campaign, but also previously, it is during elections, it is normal also to make small mistakes. But I believe that one of the biggest mistakes that we made was believing that elections in Albania could be won with democratic means, which is not only my concern now, but is also the concern of all Albanian people. In all my political career, Mr. McCarthy and my colleagues can confirm, I have tried to maintain a pro-European path during my time in Parliament and out of Parliament, but also with a focus on solutions, never on the political fight, never on creating a conflict that was not necessary. The elections in Albania, 25th of April, are coming from the 5th of June changes of the electoral code, which were consensual. Yes, of course, they were consensual, but the consensus of June 5th was not respected. Unilateral changes were made which favored the government now. The unilateral changes were related with the creation of small parties, with the opposition not being able to run in as an opposition with lists, and other small changes which at the time your ambassador, Ms. Yuri Kim, did actually strongly say that unilateral changes were in breach of the June 5th agreement. The government worked during the last 2 years just to win elections. The government did not work for the European future of the country, but made everything possible by investing in winning elections. As I'm quoting, I heard Mr. Balla say that he was quoting the ODIHR report saying that the electoral process was smooth, but the ODIHR report says that the election day was ran smoothly. And of course, the election fraud does not happen on election day. The election fraud with this government happened during the last 1.5 years. As the ODIHR report says, a structured widespread vote buying has occurred during the last parliamentary elections. From a total, there is a total of 15 lawsuits brought to the Special Anti-Corruption Prosecutor for vote buying, and there is, of course, in several regions of Albania, criminal groups, unauthorized youngsters gathering outside centers. In addition, the government used the private data of citizens for these elections. What I can say now that having all government against us, using, as ODIHR says, every possible single state resource and public administration for election, changing the election ballots 3 weeks before elections by not putting the candidate names on the ballot, which we all agreed that we wanted to vote for candidates, but they removed the names and they put numbers, has resulted in the highest number of invalid ballot paper. 85,000 ballot paper are now invalid because people were mistaking the number of the candidate with the number of the party. There was a ballot paper with only numbers, which voters did not have the right time to focus on it. So criminals, unfortunately, even though the Democratic Party of Albania and LSI did fight very much for decriminalization of parliament and municipalities, unluckily, people with criminal records and people which are subject of election fraud, of the prosecution files for the election fraud in Dibra and in Durrës, which were made public all over the world, are now in parliament. Next parliament will have 8 people, which are part of the criminal groups who bought elections and used criminals for buying elections. Of course, these are problems that we stated before. These are problems that the ODIHR report mentions. These are problems that everyone mentioned during this period. Most of these problems were actually stated out by the free media and press. The very few actually who have spoken. And going back to the main question that you raised at the beginning of the panel, do you believe that the endemic corruption? Do I believe that the endemic corruption, which has accompanied Albania for a long period of time, but which unfortunately during the last 4 to 8 years has become a state capture corruption, as the Transparency International report says, will be fought? I'm sorry to say, but this will not be possible. Free and fair elections were one of the main conditions for Albania's path towards EU integration. Several EU member countries did speak also through their members of parliament before elections, saying that vote buying will not be any more tolerated. And saying that vote buying will not be any more tolerated is an accusation itself very hard and very actually very big, which in this case makes Albania's path towards EU very much complicated, much more complicated than it was before. When we started in opposition 8 years ago, when this government started, there were 3 conditions for entering the EU and starting the accession process. Unfortunately, today there are 15 conditions. Even though Albania deserved to be a candidate country long time ago and start the accession process long time ago, because of political will and because of acts of this government which went backwards, it was not made possible. Speaking on behalf of the opposition, I can say that if there is one project which remains a national priority and which remains also a national vision for the Democratic Party of Albania, is the European integration process. me personally, but everyone in the Democratic Party, and I believe also LSI Glaida will speak for this herself, believe that the only way forward is the European integration process. We'll do whatever it is in our hands for this process to go ahead. But one of the preconditions for this process was free and fair elections. And these elections were not free and fair. If ODIHR recognizes this problem, and if ODIHR evaluates three groups of pressure, first of all, pressure on voters and limitation of the right to vote, I'm quoting ODIHR, misuse of public administration, advantaging the ruling Socialist Party, and vote buying, intimidation of voters, I believe that the free and fair elections will continue to be a condition for Albania. And I'm sorry to say, but as a politician for the future parliament, I feel shameful that we are not able to guarantee free and fair elections. And I will finish by what I started at the beginning. We thought that with the increased participation, we thought that with a program, with a good team, we thought that with a positive campaign, we thought that with talking to people for solutions and not using criminals and public resources, we could win. But these elections showed that unfortunately democratic means are not used anymore by these governments. Unprecedentedly, 5 days before elections, the government also issued a ban for citizens coming from Greece and Northern Macedonia for an obligatory quarantine of 14 days from their arrival date. Stopping Albanians from voting. So there is a long list of problems that accompanied this campaign, which I think that primary duty of the next parliament would be, first of all, investigating electoral crimes, as the State Department said, as all EU ambassadors said yesterday in their statements, but also starting investigation committees and inquiry committees on how Albania can finally have free and fair elections. Thank you, Paul.
Great, thank you very much, Ms. Tabaku. We're going to turn to, I told you that this was going to be an interesting discussion, and I'm glad that our participants are being very frank and forthright in their assessments of these recent elections. That's what we were hoping for. We're going to turn to Glaida Josha from the LSI. Glaida, the floor is yours.
Hello, Paul. Hello to everyone. It is a pleasure to be here with you today. And I really thank the International Republican Institute for this invitation. This is a really important moment for Albania as we just finished the elections after the 25th June. Really long campaign, a different campaign, even due to the pandemic. Of course, this changed all the way that we used to do the campaigns before. And as Yorida said, we tried to do a very good campaign, very positive campaign, work with people, have a good team, have people with integrity in our lists. But of course, sometimes this is not enough to win the elections, especially when you have to deal with a regime in front of you. Unfortunately, the 25th of June marked a very dark day for our democracy and for the future of our country. And this is due to many reasons. First of all, our opposition followed a wrong strategy in the last 4 years, starting with the relinquishing of our mandates and leaving the parliament. And secondly, by abolishing the local elections in 2019. Even though these actions were taken under a lot of pressure and on a specific moment where the circumstances and the behavior of the government actually was unendurable, and it, especially because we didn't have, we lacked the constitutional court at the moment. This made it all impossible for us to complete the mandate inside this institution. Still, this was a very extreme movement, which the country is even paying for today. Saying this, it is important to remind to everyone that it does not give the government the right to take one-sided decisions, which are directly affecting democracy and our people. The government violated the agreement that was reached on the 5th of June last year by all the political parties, which had to do with the elections, and went ahead to make changes in the constitution and on the electoral code, making it impossible for the smaller parties to run fairly in the elections. Changes in the code brought inequality in votes that were then translated into mandates, confusion in the way that the people would go to vote, as the ballot paper was introduced to our citizens just 3 weeks before the elections, first with names, and then we changed from names because our politicians, unfortunately, are afraid of names and really good candidates inside of the political parties. So we changed to numbers to make it even more confusion. And one of the other reasons to do this is because they wanted to have as many invalid papers as possible, because as you can see today, we have more than 85,000 invalid ballot papers found in the boxes. And most of them, the majority of these ballot papers, were votes for the opposition. The government, by having all the powers in one hand, media, justice, local government, executive, of course, they had all the mobilities to put a lot of pressure to citizens, used public administration and public funds to intimidate and buy votes all across the country. The scandal of personal data leakage by producing a system of citizens' data with IDs, personal information, where they work, live, their financial status, and by gathering most of these data by e-Albania, that is an official site handled by the government for keeping citizens' personal data, is not just a big scandal, but is a threat to our national security and is a crime that needs to be urgently investigated. The challenges of our country in the next few years are very important, which the opposition and our party at SMI, we need to handle following a strict strategy to which we all have to comply with, starting with producing a fair electoral code, more simple for the people to understand, and also we need to be in front of a very dangerous regime, which we now have in front of us, which is closer to autocracy rather than democracy. For SMI, I think we will need to face big changes within the party on the way we function, to grow competition inside the party, and also to open our party to new and intellectual members. And this is very, very important for the future. But while we face these challenges inside of the party, the country is facing an even bigger challenge, that of massive immigration. 700,000 Albanians have left in the last 6 years, unfortunately, and more than another 700,000 people are ready to leave the country in the days to come. To me, this is the most serious and urgent matter that our politicians need to focus on their daily work, not forgetting that most of the people that are leaving the country are young and middle-class professionals. Until a few years ago, to be honest, I used to believe that Albania would be a member of EU in nearly 10 years. Today, I'm convinced that for us, this will be a very long and difficult process. Albania needs a normal leadership that works for the people and with the people, that is not even close to this anymore. We need to build strong foundations for the rule of law, to respect human rights, because nobody is talking anymore about these issues, which are very crucial to all Albanian citizens, handling property issues, tackling matters like corruption and crime, which unfortunately are not just part of our system now, but they have become part of our behavior and mentality. And this is even more difficult to tackle. So what we really need in the next months and years really is a big change in our political figures that in 30 years continue to keep Albania under a very long and tiring transition and have turned politics into a tool for personal power. Unfortunately, these elections did not mark a completion of one of the main conditions that EU had for Albania, which was free and fair elections. according to my view, but not just my view, to all the people that worked with us, to all the citizens that went to vote believing for change, and this never happened. I think these were the worst elections that Albania has had since we started our democracy, which is not even a democracy anymore. So I think this will be a tough way for Albania in order to produce many answers for the member states in the next few weeks and months. And it will be difficult. It will be difficult for the first intergovernmental meeting as well to get a date. I'm sure on this. I used to be Minister of European Integration. I know how it works. I know how much they monitor all the process. European Commission is only one instrument. There are many other instruments that are being used to monitor all over the country and to see what is going on at the moment. But I still believe that change is very near, even though elections have just finished. And opposition has a very strong tool now in their hands, and that is Parliament. And I think everybody that is going to be in that Parliament has to work for Albanian citizens and for their European future, and to keep Albanian citizens here in Albania. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Josha. We're now going to turn to questions from the audience. And as a reminder, questions can be submitted through the Q&A function of the Zoom webinar. This can be done by clicking on the Q&A found at the bottom of the Zoom screen and typing and submitting a question for the panel in the window that pops up. We've gotten quite a bit of questions, a lot of interest in this discussion. These were all very interesting presentations, and we love to get a debate going here at the IRI. A couple questions here from the audience. I want to turn to Mr. Balla for this. There have been some accusations that citizens' private information was mishandled during these elections for political purposes. What can you say about that, and how do we, if it has indeed taken place, how can we keep this from happening in the future? This was something that Ms. Josha brought up as well. So I would pose that question to Mr. Balla, please.
So thank you. There is an investigation going through about this from the Special Prosecutor Against Corruption. And I think that we have all to wait until the investigation goes through and finalizes it. But I want to tell you that there is nothing more special than every party in US or in Europe does. When you do canvassing and you go and meet people to convince them to vote, and then you create your database with possible voters that are going to vote for your party. So I think all the three parties represented here have the same database, and I'm sure for that. I know it. So there is nothing to hide in this. Also, the special commissioner on data privacy has been investigating. We have offered all the information we had, and what was told in the media was a fake news, and all those data that were sent in the media were fake. And after the investigation, everybody will understand that this issue was used for electoral purposes, and there was nothing true on that. There was no misuse of personal data by the Socialist Party without the agreement of those who were contacted by us. And I want to reiterate once again that we do the same campaign as every well-organized party does all over the United States or also in Europe. And one thing I want to stress that is linked to what my dear colleagues said before. First, we have to be honest with each other. On Monday, both Democratic Party and SMI proclaimed that they won elections. And that's very good because they did better than the last elections. I mean DP. If you on Monday you say that you won elections, and then on Wednesday when the results goes out, you say that you don't agree with the results, this is a question of losing face in front of the people. Secondly, answering to what my dear colleague Clyda said regarding the invalid ballots. It is not true, and you have the right, every party has the right to make a recount of the invalid ballot papers. I can tell you about the constituency of Elbasan, where I'm elected. From 9,000 votes, 6,000 have voted in favor of Socialist Party and in favor of party number 8, thinking that they were voting for me, but instead they had an invalid vote. So it is not true that most of the invalid votes are in favor of the opposition. I told you one constituency, but you have the right to follow this complaint through procedures. So elections are finished, but your right to follow your complaints through legal means and institution is there. So please do it and follow any complaint before bringing the same political speech that you did also 4 years before. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Balla. I'm going to turn to Yorita Tabaku with a related question. Given the allegations and charges that have been made with regard to election fraud on the part of the opposition, including what we've just been talking about here, what does this mean for the opposition's plan to work with the Socialist Party, which has won these elections? Mr. Balla put on the table during his initial presentation an offer to work together. Can we expect collaboration, or will there be a further boycott of these elections moving forward?
Thank you, Paul, for your question. I'm going to spare you the normal Albanian political debate and reply to Mr. Balla, because I want to speak to you and to the respect of the people who have made questions, which I'm actually just reading right now. What will happen next? Of course, everyone is interested in knowing what will happen next. I cannot say right now what decision it will be taken, because of course the party structures would have to decide on that. But for the moment, and as Clyda said, and we have to learn from the past. We have to learn we have to use the past to change also for better for ourselves. But what I can say now is that we will follow the legality of the elections at every instance. We will make sure that all allegations made not by the opposition, not by citizens, not by media, but by the ODIHR report are actually investigated. We will make sure that elections are one of the main topics that internationals will discuss, that the government will be made responsible for. And of course, we will see how to take a decision to move on the way forward. Of course, I am a person who does not blame others, who does not only put the fault on others. As I started discussing, saying that democracy is at risk, and actually democracy is at risk now, with whatever happened with elections, I believe that we will also have a process of analyzing research for our internal purposes in terms of what were the internal decisions and what were the internal processes that we could change to improve ourselves. I told you at the beginning that in my constituency, I increased votes for DP by 55%. 55% is unseen, is one of the biggest figures in the country. But it was not enough, because my people who are unemployed, who just believe in my party, who believe for change, were unable to win against directors of customs, cadastre, legalization, electricity, utility. These were the people I had in front of me. I did a civilized campaign. I talked to people for the solutions, for the program, and I had in front of me a party with no program. In these elections, we have a small party who got 33,000 votes and has 3 members of parliament, and LSI has 100,000 votes and has 4 members of parliament. Kleida started by saying that the system changed to be unfair, to not let the parties compete in an equal and free manner. So I believe that we will do both. Also internal process, but what is important, legality of elections and following up all ODIHR recommendations at any stance. Now I'm sorry to say, but continue fighting for democracy. I really believe that in these elections, the future of the country was at stake, and it is at stake. The future of Albania is at stake. At the end of the day, everything happens because of the political will, and I'm sorry that the government did not have at main interest Albanians' political will, but their own political will for power and, of course, being in government. So I believe that a long process is ahead of us, a long fight is ahead of us. At the first days after the election, we did go in public and say that increased participation for DP showed that figures were increasing the support for DP, also for LSI. We wanted to make sure that this process would finish, and our counters and our people who were counting still votes and managing the process would do this with integrity and with no pressure. And we did this for the people who administered elections. I would do the same now, even knowing the results. I would do the same just to keep people motivated and to keep the process in its whole integrity. I'm sorry, but I did not have people with guns in my constituency, as most probably in Elbasan had or other areas had. I just had poor people without a job with me who wanted change, and unfortunately we did not have it. So thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much, Yorida. I'm going to turn to Kleida now with a question. It's related, but the international observers and domestic observers pointed out that there was quite a bit of voter intimidation and purchasing of votes during the elections, particularly in rural communities. And I'm wondering what you would say about how to combat that, and also maybe you'd give us your assessment of whether that was a fair criticism. But most importantly, what are we going to do about it?
It is not only a fair criticism. It is so real that it's painful, to be honest. Not only in rural areas, but also in the middle of our cities. With everyone. Intimidation started with public administration by gathering the IDs, asking people to vote for the SP, by intimidating the teachers. You have a statement of the Prime Minister just a while ago asking the teachers to think well for which party they are going to vote, because if they don't vote for the SP, they might get fired. They might not have a job by the end of the elections. And these statements are public, so everyone can find them and look at them. Also, this government used two big matters in Albania. First of all, earthquake and people that lost their homes, going there, getting the lists, trying to give people homes, the ones that were voting for the Socialist Party, and everybody else that had a person that had all this data and knew that they were voting for other parties. They still, even today, do not have nothing, living outside. And this is really painful. And secondly, they used pandemic. They used vaccine as a tool to get votes. In their way of campaigning throughout the campaign, the sentences were exactly like this. If you want to get vaccinated, you vote for SP. This is not a campaign playing with people's life, playing with people's future. People are scared, not just in Albania, but like everywhere. So of course, thinking that Edi Rama and his party are like gods here, taking away the virus, and nobody else could do it. Some of them, yes, believe that this might be the case. And don't forget that Albania is a poor country. It's not a rich country. And in a poor country, and where education does not function well, it is a problem. It is a problem because people can be bought with very little, just with flour or a sandwich. And this is sad. And it happens everywhere. I'm telling you, not just in the rural areas, but in all the biggest cities. It happens right here in Tirana, which is the heart of Albania. What we have to do for this is a very difficult question because, first of all, the government has everything in their hand. For this phenomenon to be taken away, you need justice. And there are still many cases of fraud in the elections that are still there as cases not opened by the justice system. Even SPAC is not handling these cases right now. So we needed an answer before we went to this election so that we could give an example, we could give a model to everybody that yes, if you buy votes, if you do something to intimidate people, you go to prison. If you use criminals in the campaign, you could go to prison. But no, this did not happen. So unfortunately, justice is the key answer to this. Justice first, and the will of our politicians, the mentality of our politicians to stop thinking about their own power and their own seats. Because while they're thinking about their own power, everything they have in mind is how to buy votes, how to buy people's future in this country. This is why I also mentioned in my speech that changing political figures, having new people in politics, having people with integrity in politics is absolutely crucial. This will even change the way that we think about elections and the way that we work for our people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Clyda. I wanted to give Mr. Balla an opportunity to respond, but I also want to ask him, you pointed out in your remarks that there is a heavy duty for the new incoming government, and you don't want to underestimate the duty and the responsibility that you have. One thing that needs to be addressed, and not just recently, but for decades now, is the corruption issue. A lot of U.S. effort, in particular USAID for the past 30 years, has gone into the effort to combat corruption and organized crime. Most recently with the development of the U.S.-Albania Transparency Academy, which IRI is looking forward to launching soon in Tirana, along with its partners NDI, IFAS, and SIPE as well. And we look forward to working with you all on that. How can we all, international donors and implementing organizations, best support Albania's democracy, in particular the fight against corruption, given Albania's EU aspirations? Mr. Balla?
Thank you, Paul. You forgot the main investment that is done by the United States and the European Union, which is the justice reform. Thanks to the justice reform now we have in place all the new institutions of the new justice. So I mentioned before one of the complaints that was done by the opposition with the personal data, and I mentioned the special prosecutor against corruption, which is an institution that is also following a lot of other complaints. I know that the Democratic Party has done some. I have done some. in the special prosecutor against corruption related to some issues on the electoral campaign. And as every Albanian citizen, I would like to see results by the special prosecutor against corruption. And I think that this is the hope of most of the Albanians, that we'll see in the near future big results. A lot of results have been seen up to now. And mentioning what Ambassador Yuri Kim said, that the results for the last year of this special prosecutor have been very positive. You know that during the last year, Albania did a very strong shot against organized crime by putting them under the control of their assets. And a lot of assets have been already taken by the state, and a lot of others are being investigated. So I am very optimistic that we will have good results when it comes to fight against corruption. And I know that this is a very crucial homework that we need to deliver. We need to have a track record of results when it comes to fight against corruption. But if we see 2020 and the first 3 months of 2021 comparing to previous years, it shows that a lot of results are being delivered. But I do agree that we need more work together. And since maybe it is my last intervention, as timing is finishing, once again I want to reiterate our conviction that yes, we are the winners, but we understand that there is a common responsibility for all political stakeholders in Albania to work together in the next parliament, and not only to bring forward the big reforms. So we have a lot of proposals. I know that also DP had some proposals regarding some big reforms that we need to do them together. And so you know that big reforms need either 3/5 in the parliament or 2/3 of the parliament. So ready to work all together in the framework of European integration.
Thank you very much, Mr. Balla. I'll turn back to Yorida. I mean, what do you think are the best ways to address the corruption issue? I know it's a very large one, and justice reform is related to that problem. And thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Balla. What are the Democratic Party's plans in this regard moving forward? What can it put on the table?
Thank you, Paul. Do you hear me? Yeah, okay. Thank you, Paul. Actually, we also had a specific part of our electoral program related with the justice reform. I'm sorry that the government did not have an electoral program at all, but focusing on the justice reform, we want it to work and to function. We want solid and strong justice institutions, and if today, I'm not aware that Mr. Balla did bring cases to SPAC, but if today we have 53 cases to SPAC and 150 cases for election fraud to prosecution of cities, district prosecution, is because we want to put these bodies at the desk. We want these institutions to work, and we believe that if the justice reform was implemented as it was intended, not changed outside of political pressure, we would have seen results until now. I am sorry that we were not able to see results until now for the justice reform. There were sporadic cases of sizing illegal activities related to mafia and to crime, but nothing related with political crime. We have brought cases to the specific institutions regarding corruption specifically related with politics, election fraud, but also specific cases which were brought to district prosecution for use of public resources in elections, but also for other accusations. This is why I want to see these institutions work, Mr. McCarthy. I want to see results because we have voted in 2016 for the justice reform, for changes in the constitution, which again, when you were unilaterally changed by the government in their favor, and we have not seen these institutions yet show results. If we brought cases to these institutions is that we believe in the justice reform, is that we believe that these institutions should make a difference. I have not yet seen a difference until now. My party's political will is that everything that is needed for the European integration of the country should be made possible. Everything needed towards changing the status quo, everything needed towards fighting corruption from our side will be given. But the political will from the opposition is not enough. The political will in this regard should come from the government. And since this will be my conclusive remark, I want to thank your institution, but also other US institutions who were very strong in speaking for elections. I want to personally thank the US ambassador, who unfortunately in Albania of 2021, it should not be like this, but it was like this in these elections. She went personally in counting centers, making sure that counting was continuing and counters were free of criminal pressure like it happened in Elbasan. I am sorry that we had to use these tools, but then this is what friends are for. I am very thankful to whatever your institution is doing also for the Transparency Academy. I believe that it will be a strong tool, a very strong tool for fighting corruption. And I will personally invest everything that I can, but also my party, to make this a strong institution and to speak. We have had also a panel about corruption, and I believe that this is an area where we can greatly contribute, related also to the justice reform. I want to conclude by saying that this is not the end of a process. This is the start of a new fight for my party, for the opposition. This is the start of a fight with different means, with very much improved propaganda from the government, with, of course, in some cases, media support. But this is a fight very much important for Albania and for its European integration. So I want to ask you, in my name personally, but also in the name of Democratic Party of Albania, to still continue supporting Albania, to still continue supporting Albanian politics, and to still believing that change only comes through politics and not other means. This will be my motto in politics, and I believe it has been until now. I will continue personally to give my contribution, small, for the European integration process from one side, but also for the anti-corruption fight jointly with your institutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yorita. And on that positive note, we've come to the end of our time. And I wanted to thank, first of all, Mr. Balla and Yorita Tabaku and Clyda Josha for their participation. We are watching very closely with much interest what happens in the post-election period. It was interesting to hear from the panelists some offers of political cooperation moving forward. It'd be interesting to see that, and also to really tackle the major problems at hand, including, of course, the corruption issue and also the electoral process as well. So moving forward. So thank you very much to our three panelists, and also thank you very much to the audience. I'm sorry if I was not able to get to all your questions. There was obviously keen interest in this discussion, and we look forward to cooperating in Albania, and also looking forward to having further discussions like this one. Everybody have a great day, and look forward to seeing you again at IRI. Bye-bye.
Thank you. It was a great pleasure.
Thank you.